beautiful people, and welcome to another episode of Nka, only on Afia TV, on DSTV channel 254, Go TV channel 17, and Free TV channel 748. My name is Chinalurumogu Eze, your host tonight, but you knew that already. You know how we do it on Nka? We have conversations with people who are creatives, who are artistic, are doing something with their craft, with their God-given talent. We have them on the show and we can learn a thing or two or 1,000 from them. But away from what we do on Nka, it is also my immense pleasure to remind you that this weekend is Valentine's Day, and I do not know your plans for Valentine's Day. I hope it doesn't involve scrolling through social media and just reminding yourself that you are single. I mean, that is what I'm going to do for myself, but for you, I think you should do something about your life. You don't have to wait for a man or a woman to make you feel filled on Valentine's Day. Go out on that day. Go for a movie. There's so many movies out on the cinemas right about now that you can watch. So many movies. Go. Have fun with your friends. And maybe your friends have boyfriends or your friends have girlfriends. So you're probably going to be alone on that day. So how about you just go watch that movie alone? Make sure you buy popcorns, have drinks. Then when you come back at home, you can try a horror film, because I do not want to recommend a romantic comedy. No. You can watch a horror film so that you will harden your heart against love. That's pretty much it, but you know how it is. We'll go on a quick break, and when we come back, I'll introduce to you our guest tonight. Don't go anywhere. 2 or 1,000 from their experiences, what has worked for them, what did not work for them, and ask them about their relationship status. Yes. On tonight's episode, we're putting the spotlight on a certain young man that has inspired over 70,000 individuals, young people across Nigeria, in different parts of the country. We're talking about core members, universities, and so many people, inspiring them in personal development, career development, and so many things. Join me and welcome our guest tonight, the Director of Operations for Beam Africa Consulting, Alexander Kaduna. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Chinalurumogu.
Good evening. How are you?
I'm very fine. The phenomenal Chinalurumogu.
Oh, stop it. How are you doing? It's your first time on Nka, on my show. How do you feel about that?
Well, excited and looking forward to the stimulating conversations ahead.
I told you, you asked me, what are we going to discuss? I told you we're discussing you.
Okay.
You are the conversation.
Okay.
You are the subject matter. I hope you're ready.
Well, I'm ready.
Okay. Before we go any further, I've always wanted to ask you, and for every time I asked you that question, you always maneuver that conversation. So maybe you'll tell us on the TV today, why are you called Alexander Kaduna? Why did you give yourself that name? I know you grew up in Kaduna, but did that inspire you to have, because you've built a brand around Alexander Kaduna. You've built a brand, built a brand around it. So why Kaduna? Why not Alexander Enugu State or something? You're from Enugu. So why?
Okay, very important question. I grew up in Kaduna, just like you noted, and I just automatically adopted the culture in the north. It's a culture in the north that where when you grow up in a certain town and you begin to do well in your sphere of life, it could be politics, it could be business, it could be, professional sphere, it could be art and entertainment or anything it is. But as long as you begin to make waves or make some impact in your field, it's two-edged sword. It's either you adopt the name of the town you grew up to make the town popular, or you adopt the name of an already popular town to make yourself more popular. So that's the reason we have people like Shehu Shagari.
I was just going to say that.
First elected president of Nigeria. His town in Sokoto is Shagari town. So he adopted the name of the town. Without him, probably wouldn't have been hearing about Shagari town today.
I honestly did not know Shagari was a town.
This was a town.
No offense. I know I'm a journalist and I'm supposed to know, but I did not know that.
Prime Minister of Nigeria, Alhaji Tafawa Abubakar Balewa.
Yes.
The name of his town in Bauchi State is Tafawa Balewa.
But there's one that is more popular. There's a particular politician in Nigerian history.
Kano.
Is that the one? There's
the late
another
Aminu
one.
Kano.
Okay.
I think Kano has been popular before.
Okay, yes, I think that's the one. Kano, and then I'm like, okay.
So it's a common
people
culture.
People just do that.
North,
I didn't know that's a thing.
We adopt it, and over time, that name could actually supersede your original or your what they call it, your ancestral name, just like he's about to do mine now. So it's already becoming a brand, and there is a brand I adopted from the Northern culture.
Okay.
Yes.
So it doesn't in any way supersede your ancestry as an Igbo person, does it?
Not at all. Not at all.
Because one for Chukwuebo is your surname.
Yes.
And we don't hear or see one for Chukwuebo anywhere. What we see is Alexander Kaduna.
Okay, my one for Chukwuebo is still in my valid documents and my passport and my ID cards and etc. But then you can say Alexander Kaduna is my stage or brand name. Let's just summarize as a brand name.
Okay, but just before we get into the real stuff, between northern Nigeria and eastern Nigeria, who would you say has the best food? You've been in Kaduna, you live in it. Guys, this guy is everywhere. Alexander is everywhere. He has seen everything. But because you grew up in Kaduna, and I'm sure you visited the north a couple of times, so that's why I'm asking, between the north and the east, which would you say has the best food in Nigeria?
Well, north cultivates all kinds of meal. They are good in production of crops, but they do not have the dexterity to make cuisine, all right?
Okay.
They don't have that creativity to prepare wonderful delicacies. So I give it up to the East. We are among the most creative and the most outstanding people when it comes to, continental and African cuisine in Nigeria. The only people that can actually compete with us on that pedestal is Akwa Ibom.
Okay. Oh,
and
not
Cross
even
River.
Yorubas.
No, Yorubas are spectators in this regard. They're not even in the pitch to start with. Apologies to my Yoruba friends and brothers.
Okay.
But when it comes to African cuisine and delicacies, Yorubas are still, at the apologies.
We get it. I get it. I think you're right. I think you're absolutely right. I was telling someone, they don't want to agree, but it's a fact. It's a fact. I mean, when I think about Akwa Ibom dishes, fisherman? No, fisherman belongs to Port Harcourt people. I don't even know, but you get the idea.
Yes.
Erikaiko, Abi Edikaiko. I don't even know what Afang. I haven't tasted.
Akwa Ibom, they're better off in the game than the Igbos. You understand?
They are?
Of course. I think
Enugu alone has so much to offer.
You are right.
I didn't want to argue this before. I always try not to because I feel like Anambra, any other state would be better. But Enugu has so much when it comes to meals.
You're right.
More than any other eastern state.
You're right. However, in terms of, I'm not talking about varieties right now, because if you haven't talking about varieties, the north is ahead. North is number one.
Okay.
I'm talking about varieties. For instance, in Enugu here, how many times have you seen meals prepared with millets?
I get it now. No, we don't do that here. We don't
so when it comes to varieties of meal, the north is ahead more than any other region in Nigeria. But we are talking about the creativity that is involved in the art of making meals and kitchen practice and etc. Akwa Ibom first, followed by Igbos. Akwa Ibom, okay, we call it Aqua Cross. Okay. The marriage between Cross River and Akwa Ibom State. They are the first and closely followed by the Igbos. Very closely followed by the Igbos.
I like that you're a truthful person, always. But we have not stopped the argument. Alexander and I have always argued about Enugu and Anambra. For the longest I've known him. And we will start this argument again on the show, but we'll leave that for later. Let's come back to what we are here for. Thank you for indulging me in that conversation.
My pleasure.
About northern cuisines and eastern cuisines.
Yeah.
So let's go deeper into who Alexander Kaduna is. I know that I'm not sure when you started, but I've seen you go through teaching when you were a teacher in Queen's Model Secondary School.
Yeah.
But then you evolved. I've seen you speak to a room filled with thousands of students. I've seen you speak to core members. Everything around you has revolved around young people. So at what point in your life did you say you would tread that path into helping young people develop themselves personally, career development? At what point in your life do you want to take that professionally? Yes. Aside the classroom.
Professionally, is it okay to start from when it became a professional thing? I think I have to start
You started from when you were in the womb.
the ragtag.
Okay, let's have it.
It has always been a dream, even from my teenage years. And but the first step I made was in 2010. In 2010, in my hometown, when I traveled to my hometown during the festive season, I conceived an idea. I saw young people. I'm talking about the first time I took a step. The dream has been there alive, even as a 10-year-old child, even as an 8-year-old child. I had this dream of being an inspiration to fellow young people and then building a system that would not just nurture them, but give them a platform to stand on and express their light. So the first step I took, the first bold step I took was in 2010. I was passing across the village football field and I saw on the 13-year-old boys playing football. And an idea struck me. You can support them one way or the other, even if it's by way of buying them football and other
things to play football,
itineraries and all that. So I decided to get involved with them. I vibed with those boys. I bought them cabin biscuits that day and water and a couple of soft drinks. So from that day, I conceived an idea that I named BOHOFA, BOHOFA, which stands for Boys of Hope Football Academy.
Okay.
Boys of Hope Football Academy. So I consulted one or two persons who are heavyweights in my community and said, okay, we need your support. Now, during festive seasons, there are football tournaments that happens in the village, and it's usually it's usually a tournament that involves the youth demography, those that are between the ages of 19 to 30 or thereabout. People don't actually give attention to under 13, under 14, under 15 football age in the rural areas. So I decided that, okay, we can do something different to give them some visibility during festive season. If there's a tournament going on during Christmas season or Easter season for the youths, they can also have some semi or mini tournaments for the younger ones, the adolescents. So I approached one or two persons and I was able to raise some funds. I bought them football and jersey and boots for some of them, and it was a sort of encouragement. So after a while, it couldn't be sustained. So Bohofa now evolved into Yohosa.
I know Yohosa.
Okay.
I know Yohosa.
So from Boys of Hope Football Academy, it later became Youth of Hope Social Academy. Youth of Hope Social Academy, and everything was still revolving around a system that was primarily built to give young people an expression, a platform to give an expression to their skills or an expression to their talents, refine it into skills and then make it a marketable commodity that can solve problems out there in the society. It could be in art, it could be in trade, it could be in vocation and etc. So Yohosa was making a lot of impact across secondary schools, majorly in Enugu and the other part of eastern Nigeria. Then after a while, Yohosa was translated into another one called Butterflies Academy. Okay, and I remember
ideas they cry for.
I remember you were once part of Butterflies Academy, which was taking place at somewhere in Independence Layouts. Okay, at ESBS bus stop precisely. Ecstasy.
Okay.
Yes, ecstasy. Okay. We had various departments. We had a filmmaking and acting department. We had music department. We had bakery department. We have makeup artistry department. We had photography department, and we engaged the services of artisans and technocrats in those fields who came around to provide not just inspiration at this time, but hardcore skills training to the young ones, especially teenagers, who were part and parcel of that system. And we were doing it almost free. All they needed to do at that time was just subscription of 1,000 naira every month, and you receive those trainings almost at a free rate. So that's how I continued doing it until it became imperative that I have to build a business system around it. And that was how I, teamed up with my partners, and Beam Africa Consulting was bettered.
Because my next question to you was, has this ever been profitable? Go for what you have passion for.
Yeah.
But in the long run, that thing you have passion for may not give you the money you want. So it's good to know that you had to team up with somebody, because I see what you've been doing with them. University of Nigeria and Soka, I think Unical,
Universal Calabar,
a lot of universities that you've gone to talk to their students, and I personally witnessed the one in Funai. Yes, Federal University of
Alex Ekweme Federal University.
Thank you very much. I personally witnessed that one. It's good to know that you finally saw a way to also make it profitable for yourself and for your partners, right?
Yeah.
But over the years that you've been doing this thing where you help young people discover themselves and their careers, what would you say is the greatest mistake you've seen young people make when it concerns their career? What would you say is the biggest mistake you've seen them keep doing? Or it feels like a disease, like every young person you meet, it's this problem, it's this problem, it's this problem. What would you say is that thing?
The greatest mistake young people make, that's a very hard one to crack, because the mistakes are too numerous for us to begin to identify which one is greater than the other.
Okay, so let's have like 2 or 3. Let's talk about it.
Okay, but I have to honestly say to you that the incidence of mistake among young people when it comes to career pursuits is actually one of the flavors that helps in igniting that stardom, or whatever it is.
Okay.
Because let me start with my own mistake.
Okay.
Because I was once a teenager before growing up to become a youth. So the first and the primary mistake I thought I spent years making, I do not want to call it waste. I didn't waste the years making those mistakes. I spent those years. I invested those years making the mistake, because those mistakes are like raw materials that help me to understand the dynamics of how my career life is operating now. And that singular mistake is the mistake of putting passion before profits. Yeah,
but we're always taught. Exactly. We're always taught, go for passion.
Yeah.
Don't always think of money. Money should come last. That's what they teach us.
Yeah.
Right? So let's have it. Let's have this conversation.
You can actually spend years, spend decades, if care is not taken. You can spend a couple of decades, projecting your passion and not paying attention to profits, and you will die in frustration. Yes. So one of the greatest favor a young person should do for himself early enough is to find out the easiest way. Most of the times, those easiest way could be through mentorship or apprenticeship. Now, link yourself to a stronger force who would, at so early enough, link you towards the path of understanding how your passion could be converted for monetary profits. Because the only thing that can sustain that passion at some points is finances and resources. For instance, you are very passionate about entertaining people with music. Now, one of the ways you can do that is through organizing of concerts. And even if people are going to pay for your concerts, you are the one that first of all pay for logistics and planning. You pay for publicity. You will pay for feasibility. All these things does not come cost-free. And most times, if you don't have the money, people can come in as sponsors and partners. And if they are going to monetize your platform, they would go away with bulk of the money. So money and resources and finance are part of the languages that you should begin to speak early enough as a young person. Okay? Because if you don't, a time would come when you would so much desire to entertain people, but you won't have the wherewithal to do that. You so much desire to impact people, but you will now find out that it requires money to, okay, what if you want to impact people in Kaduna and you're resident in Enugu? You wouldn't obviously trek to Kaduna. Okay, you might want to take a flight from the airport down to Kaduna, and you have to pay for flight tickets. If you cannot afford it, someone else might pay for it with an interest. The interest the person may have is that the person can negotiate a stake in your craft, and then also have a return of investment after your craft generates money.
Wow.
So you might spend a long time a good number of years, okay, trying to bank only on passion and not paying attention to profit. I've seen these things happen to some people over and over again, where people can end up being very popular and broke. Okay, that's one of the worst places to be popular and broke. It's better nobody knows you and you are broke. You will be peacefully and quietly broke. But if you are very popular and broke, you'll be loudly broke. You'll be very loud. You can't go to the mall without people noticing that you're around. You can't wait for bus at the bus stop without one or two persons that know you as a celebrity.
To drop something for them. Or go find out something. They don't know saying they suffer.
Yeah, so now the nutshell is that one of the mistakes young people make early enough, which I so much desire that the ones coming ahead of us or coming behind us now should not repeat such mistakes that much, is trying to bank only on your passion so much that you forget about the fact that your passion, which is probably your talent, could be converted into a skill that will serve the community. And while serving the community and solving problems for the community is also paying your bills so that everybody will be happy. The community is happy that you're serving them with your gift, and you're happy that the gift you're serving the community with is also paying your bills and you're living a comfortable life. Because obviously, the point would come when you find yourself under the pressures of life that you won't be able to give the community the best of your passion. You have to be healthy.
Yes, you do.
Okay, and it takes money to maintain, good health and hygiene. Then you have to be strong. All right, you have to eat good. You have to live in a comfortable abode and surround yourself with some gadget that will help you to refine your craft and your art. If these things are not available, all these things are bought with money. If they're not available, how are you going to continue? You obviously see yourself phasing out and becoming a burden on the society in the long run, which is really not going to make sense.
That's very interesting. And it's good you said that this is one major problem you've seen among young people.
Yeah.
It's good to, it's also good to say that this also starts from when they are very young. Now, what you do, you channel it mostly to university students. Have you thought about going to the secondary schools? Because for many people, you see some of them are battling with their parents said they have to do this because their parents give them passion, first of all. So then their parents, they give them the passion.
They borrow passion from their parents.
Do you understand this kind of thing? And the whole, some of the teachers even teach them that this is what they will do. They should focus on it first. They are not teaching young people. A lot of people are not teaching kids this thing you just talked about now.
Yes.
So do you have any plans of probably doing a secondary school evangelism about this whole career development? Because it starts small for them.
Yeah, I think I should say that's where I started from, actually.
Okay.
That's where I started from during the days of Yehosa and Butterflies Academy. Okay, so the question should be, am I still...
Okay, are you still on track? Are you still doing that? Because we see you only in universities.
The answer to that is yes. However, it's now a... how do I describe it? It's now a secondary objective. I still do it. Even
they call you instead.
Yes. I think 1 year ago, I also actively got involved in providing scholarship for a couple of young people. Okay, in Enugu State here, I provided scholarship for people in secondary school level, some who were planning to register for their West Africa Examination Council exam, and some that were planning to write their Unified Tertiary Matriculation Examination, and etc. I provided them with scholarship as part of my support. Now, when we provide that scholarship, they have an open door to connect with us, and that connection gives us the advantage to sow the right seed. Because like you rightly noted, most of our players in the education industry are actually off track. I'm sorry to say.
Don't be sorry. Say it the way it is. A lot of them are off track.
And I keep wondering why this repeated insistence or repetition on some generic careers You'll be a doctor, you'll be a lawyer, you'll be an engineer, doctor, lawyer, engineer. Imagine if all of us end up becoming lawyers, engineers, and doctors. Just imagine how the society will look like.
Will be very, okay, awkward. So
then we'll lack those that tell stories in the media. We'll lack artisans, and lack those that make the food we eat, and etc. And another question that some teachers, okay, not some, most.
Oh, okay.
Most teachers have not been able to ask themselves is, why is it that you hardly hear your pupils when you ask them what you want to be in the future? You hardly hear them tell you, I want to be a teacher. Very difficult. Haven't you once or one day
back to understand why they don't want to be like
yourself,
you?
why don't they want to be like me? Why are they not aspiring to be like me? They're aspiring to be like a lawyer that most of them are very distant from.
Actually.
Okay? Trying to be like an engineer that most of them are very distant from.
Some of them don't even know the meaning.
Apart from a couple of them or a few of them that their parents are lawyers or engineers, some of them whose parents are not lawyers and engineers and doctors haven't had any close contact with them, but they want to be like those that they have not come in contact with. Then the mentors that mentor them every day, they don't want to be like them. Even though, as I encourage teachers to ask themselves those questions, I would also admit that it is not entirely their fault. Okay, because I've been a classroom teacher too.
Yes, you have.
Okay, and I understand that the reward system is not yet friendly in this part of our geography. The reward system for teachers is not yet friendly. So that's the reason why it appears that the teachers that teach from this locality, Nigeria and some parts of Africa, have not yet grown the backbone to give themselves the personal branding that is compelling enough to inspire a pupil to want to be like their teacher. It all boils down to what we were discussing a couple of minutes ago: money. Okay?
They probably think that teacher is poor and broke. And those other professions, they'll get money quick from doing those things.
Imagine when you're through from class and then it's time to go home. Everybody, both the teacher and pupils, need to go home. And then the teacher is at the entrance of the school gate waiting for tricycle to come and convey him or her home. And while you're waiting, the pupils you taught in class are being driven out from the school compound with S-classmates, these Benz and Venza and etc. And they'll be waving from you from the window, waiting for tricycle. And to see you tomorrow, how would they want to be like you? Okay? How would they want to be like you?
You've shattered this table right now, especially from when you talked about placing profit above passion.
Yes.
Well, that one.
Although it's very sensitive.
It is very sensitive, and we're going to demystify that later. But let us observe what Alexander Kaduna has been saying so far tonight. He's dished out a lot. He has broken so many tables right now. So let us take it in a little bit and then come right back. We'll go on a quick break, and when we come back, we'll continue breaking tables. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to Nka. My name is Chinalurumogu Eze, and we're still here with Alexander Kaduna Chukwuebo, my bad. We're still here with him, and if you're just joining us, I don't know what you heard or what you didn't hear, but he's a strong believer that young people, old people, it makes so much sense for you to prioritize profit in that thing you call your passion. But while we've established that, thank you so much, Alexander Kaduna, let us take a trip down memory lane. Here on Unka, we prioritize our guests. We look further down into how far they've come. It's because we are so proud of you that we have invited you on Unka tonight to talk about your journey.
Feel glad.
Okay, your story. So please let us have those graphics up on the screen so that we can use that to thank our guests. Yes, let us thank you.
What's this?
Well, it's you now. What's this, first of all? What it means?
I can't recognize
you. You cannot recognize now. Now your baby. Is that your girlfriend?
Oh wow, this is during the days of Butterflies Academy.
Oh, okay.
In 2017.
Okay.
And this was at Akuke Beach.
Yes, I remember this is Akuke
Okay,
Beach.
that was the picnic we had at Akuke Beach that year at Butterflies Academy.
I thought that was a
I think I can recognize this face. This should be Uche. And this is Pastor Ekenna. Pastor Ekenna of God's Jewel.
Were you receiving a gift? Was that a gift?
I was actually donating.
You were donating books.
Okay?
Oh, you didn't start today.
No,
you see what we're saying? Can we just take you down the memory lane to look at this?
This should be 2015. 2015, I was making some book donations to. He was running. He's still running a youth academy.
What on this one?
Okay. This picture was taken in the school I used to teach them, Queen's Model Secondary School.
Okay.
This is where this picture was taken when I was still a science teacher in Queen's Model Secondary School. Oh my God.
I think that's all of it. But repeat that. Okay, that's not good. Were you a pastor or what? What's going on? Did you try pastorship at some point?
You know,
you did everything.
Most ministries also have youth outreaches and youth development programs.
They invite you to come and talk to them.
Yeah, so I was facilitating in a church youth program.
Says the Lord.
I don't prophesy you.
Oh wow!
Oh,
that's the idea. You see what we're talking about?
Oh my God!
You've come so far, so far.
I'm
You're mentioning pictures from 2017, 2015. This is 2026. These pictures are 10 years old plus. Some of them. So on Unka, we're saying we see you, we bless you. Oh my God.
My God. Those were my teenagers in House on the Rock.
Oh my God.
Okay, when I was still mentoring teenagers in House on the Rock.
Okay.
And behind you can see your elder sister behind.
My elder?
Yeah.
Oh!
That's just Cindy now.
Okay.
That's just Cindy.
Oh wow. Wow.
And
Thank God I'm not in this picture. Thank God.
This way back 2016. Yeah, this picture was taken in 2016 at House on the Rock Church. MSP, the World House. And
I must also say that
these people are big boys and girls now.
As much as I do not go to church enough right now, I do go to church, guys. I still do go to church. I don't go to church enough. But at the point when I joined House on the Rock, I think it was mostly due to you. So I say thank you to you. And it is still the church I go back to whenever I feel like going back to. Because I remember how, oh my God, Alexander talked about that church a lot. Then we are always talking about the church.
Nah.
You're always talking about that, the fact that you were from Enugu State. Like,
proudly Wawa boy.
Please, let's not even start that Enugu
sensationally Wawa boy.
No problem. No arguments there. No arguments there. So this is just for us to take you back memory lane. These pictures are 10 years old and plus. So you see how far you've come. You didn't start today. You were donating books in the church. Yeah. To boost the ministry of young people. Let them read. Let them grow.
I've actually donated over 1,000 books.
Oh, wow. Across different
platforms.
Do you read non-fiction books? Let us start there. Do you read non-fiction?
Yes. Non-fiction is my main forte now.
I thought you were always reading how to be
I stopped reading fiction. No. Okay, you wanted to ask, do I read fiction?
Do you read fiction? I know you don't read fiction. I know you don't read fiction.
I stopped reading fiction over 13 years ago.
But there are great writers right now, the likes of, first of all, Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, then Rosemary Okafor, then...
I'm hearing that one for the first time.
Rosemary Okafor, she has written...
She has wonderful works.
Ahugo and a bunch of others.
Wow.
So many books.
I'd like to
so
check
many. Damilare Kuku. So many books. Nearly all the men in ladies.
I've consumed almost all the works of Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie.
Yes, consume more. There are so many beautiful writers out there.
Well, the non-fictions I've consumed were vintages. All right, all those old classics, the works of Ngugi wa Thiong'o, the works of Richard Wright.
Recent was especially our Nigerian writers. Flora Wapa, I know all those people. Cyprian Ekwensi.
I consume all his works.
I know, we all wrote WAEC at some point.
I stayed hungry. I forget food and stay throughout the night reading the books of those people. Oh, there was a time
Alexander, I know. What I'm telling you is that you should go back to them. Not those people. They are newer writers, new age writers.
Do that right now?
I will recommend books for you to read. I know you want to focus on non-fiction, how to be this, how to be that, the art of thinking, the art of talking. I know. Like, just give it a break. One fiction book every month. How about that? One fiction
fiction
book every month. I will give you recommendations.
I can't promise. So
Please.
let's say one fiction book every 3 months.
Hey, God, that's a start. That's a start. I can work with
every
that.
3 months.
Every 3 months, please. I need motivational speakers and career development coaches and personal development coaches to do. Let them do fiction books. Let it take you back into that. Let it play with your imagery. These books, you read them and you imagine every single word they play with in that book.
Okay.
So yes.
I believe you should understand why it's a bit difficult.
You want to read more so you can teach people more.
We read more of books that are trade related now. The ones that are related to our trade. I mean, not related to our field. That's fair. Okay, because the company that I'm a senior partner in now, which is Afia Consulting, our core services revolves around management consulting, corporate training, public relations and advertising, and branding and brand management. So books that has to do with those things. I will focus. So if you come to my library now, you will almost find no fiction, not even a single fiction.
That's why I can work collection. With one fiction book every 3 months.
But aside that, I am a sucker for sciences. Okay, so I read a lot of books on discoveries, space exploration, aeronautics.
Oh my God. Okay. Let me guess. Do you like watching science fiction movies?
Yes, a lot of it.
Ladies and gentlemen, see them here.
A lot of
it. See them here.
My most favorite so far is that old classic Frankenstein.
I didn't watch it.
Frankenstein or Robinson Crusoe.
Whoever that is. I didn't watch it. I didn't watch that. Well, let's allow people to be people. So I'm not going to try to bring you into the rom-com era or a horror movie era or whatever.
Yeah, but I think I would consider giving some.
Let us try to make you consider fiction first. Fiction. Let's take it step by step.
But
let me not rush you.
It has to what it's because there's a lot of three works out there.
I know it will.
Lot of
it will. It will. You'll love it. You'll love it. I mean, I love nonfiction because my imagination works over time.
Yeah.
And because of somebody like that, for me, that means something that feeds my imagination. I'm not talking about those works that make you feel like you find that particular person or character in a spouse or in a boyfriend in future. No, it just makes you see the world.
Yes.
Like I don't even know how to explain it because some of these books are even adapted into movies. So movies and books, they really go hand in hand.
Yeah.
Yes. So I will be on your case. One book every 3 months for you to read. Non-fiction, fiction book, I will be on your case. I promise
I pray I survive it.
You will. So whilst we're trying to wrap up this segment, you also happen to be a compare and event host.
Yeah.
For the long time I have known you, whilst I know you were into helping people discover parts of themselves they didn't know existed, they help them make better career choices, develop themselves personally.
Yeah.
I didn't know, I knew you were a talker. You had your way with words, and that comedic part of you could also get audiences to, laugh 1 minute or 2 minutes to make them relaxed in any environment you find yourself. So at what point did you feel like, okay, I think I should start taking this talking seriously aside from motivating people? Let's go up on stages and be the MC. At what point did you decide to take that seriously?
I think it was an accidental discovery.
Tell me about it.
I didn't even decide to do such. I didn't decide to be an event host. Rather, somebody thought I could do that and they gave me my first job in 2010. Yes, 2010. So, and I did an excellent job. All right. So the accolades and feedback I got,
and you said,
very.
I one bad.
I decided to start exploring.
Okay.
And I've hosted a couple of events. Very important events. So even though that's not my fault.
Of course.
That's not my fault. But
it's like a side gig for you.
Yes. But then I can say confidently that I'm excellent at it. I'm a badass event host, sensational one, and a very mind-blowing storyteller. Yes,
okay.
I am.
How would you say you tap into storytelling when you want to be when you are in your event hosting era? How do you tap into storytelling?
Okay, clarify the question.
So you are a mind-blowing storyteller, like you said. And I want to believe it's not just for when you tell us those beautiful stories you tell us on Facebook, by the way. He tells really great stories on Facebook. I'm sure it doesn't end there. You apply it when you're even speaking to young people about their careers or whatever. So when you are in that, on your stage, you're hosting an event, whatever event it is, do you bring that storytelling part of you in the game?
Yeah, definitely. So
tell us, how do you do it?
Definitely. You know, depending on the events, in a way, if it's a wedding reception, for instance, you will notice that in some cases during wedding reception, if the owner of the events or the event host at this point feels that the program should kick off by 3 p.m. By that 3 p.m., you would notice that the hall is not yet completely settled. Okay, people are still moving about, vendors are still putting this and that, and then some friends that have not seen them each other in ages are still trying to catch up. So one of the things you do to begin to draw attention and begin to settle people back to their seat is to begin with a story. Okay, when you mount the stage and take hold of the mic, you begin with a story, and in most cases begin with fictitious story. Fictitious but very engaging story. And then while you're doing that, you make people understand that you have to be on your seats to enjoy the story. And you would now bring up the tempo and come to almost a climax that would draw out their curiosity. At that point, they want to know what happened. You will not stop at that point and say, until everyone is seated, I won't complete the story. And at that point, you've used the power of storytelling to coordinate the crowd. That's one of the things. That's not the only thing, but that's one of the power of storytelling when you do event hosting. Another thing is that it makes you, the event host, the MC, memorable. Okay, the imprints of your memory would remain evergreen on the mind of the audience that sat under your event hosting services. And not just that too, the storytelling would also help to drive home some of the conversations, especially when you have to host events relating to education, learning, conferences and workshops and etc. Storytelling will help to drive home some of the learning points that is going to take place in that very event.
All right. Thank you so much for pointing that out. The power of storytelling. So guys, are you a storyteller? What are you doing about your storytelling? How do you engage people with your stories? How do you make money from storytelling? Because if anything, everything that Alexander Kaduna has said tonight is about using that thing you have to make money. Don't think it's just for fancy, or maybe there's something else you intend to use to make money. Use every skill you have to make money. Nigeria at all. So now we want to conclude. I want you to take a bit of time. This is your camera. So maybe you can look into it and tell young people who are watching Unka tonight, give them a piece of advice that they can work with and work through life with. So that's your camera. Talk to them. Give them a piece of advice. They are watching you right now.
Very interesting. I tell young people, like I've always done over the years, that your time starts now. You don't start planning the future. In fact, there's nothing like getting ready for the future. Every day you wake up is a future you talked about the other day. So for every day you wake up, you're already a step closer to your future. So as you're pursuing your academics, do everything you can to also be diversified. There's what we call being versatile. Okay, one of the greatest disservice you do to yourself and the generation you find yourself by extension is to focus on developing one core aspect of your life and neglecting the other. By the time you do that, you end up living a very wretched life in future. And wretchedness here does not really mean does not necessarily mean money or financial wretchedness. Okay, you are wretched when you are making very little impact in your community. You are wretched when you are not completely or directly useful to your family. You are wretched when your light is not shining very brightly. You're wretched when you cannot lay hold on any important problem that the society could say, okay, this problem is being solved because someone like me lived. So academics is one aspect of your journey. Another one is professionalism. Do your best to, evolve and acquire as much professional skills and as much professional certification and exposure as you can. And also do your best to network, all right? Build relationships, very strategic relationships. If you look into your phone contacts, like I mentioned to some persons over time, you could find out that you have 1,000 phone numbers and no contacts, or 1,000 phone numbers and few contacts. What's the difference between a phone number and a contact? A contact is that phone number saved in your phone that is really the owner of the number is really beneficial to your life one way or the other. The person may not be directly, the person can be indirectly beneficial to your life one way or the other. All right, that's a contact. You could have 1,000 phone numbers in your phone, of which, apart from your direct family members and your close friends, the rest of them are people that from now till 20 years coming, they wouldn't add any guilt to your life. Now, focus on building contact and developing your social networks. Not network this time, networks. The worth of your social life. So that's what I have for young people, especially for the audience that I'll be meeting in a couple of days, because the next summit that I'll be holding will be at Akwa Ibom State Polytechnic. Okay, they'll be having their career festival, Akwa Poly Career Festival, and it's being proudly hosted by Beam Africa Consulting. So on 21st of February 2026, the Akwa Poly Career Festival in Akwa Ibom State will be taking place at Ikotek Bene. So we're going to be meeting you there with our team, and we look forward to having a very nice and engaging time with you people.
All right. Thank you so much, Alexander Kaduna, for being with us on tonight's episode of Unka. This is why we have Unka and have people like you here. You can learn a thing or two about your career path, how things worked out for you, what didn't work out, and anything in between. So thank you so much again for being on the show. And to our beautiful viewers, I'm going to just reiterate one more time on what Alexander Kaduna has said. Do you have a phone number or do you have a contact? That's a question you need to really ask yourself tonight. Network with people, build contacts that will also help your life. And in the same vein, being a person of value. Be a person of value so that you can attract value and also give value to people. Thank you so much for staying with us on tonight's episode of Unka. My name is Chinalurumogu Eze, and I will see you next time. Bye.